Hi, everybody.
Hi, guys.
A little false advertising, I think, in the beginning there for the opening. We've got a special guest tonight. Just a little. Llama is here from the Hey Ho Show. She is filling in for Terry. Terry has been having a time with what she's doing and will be for the rest of the weekend. So I said, you focus on that. And I will force somebody else.
And that person is me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It was either you or my dad, and you were more of a sure thing than my dad.
I should work on that thing called saying no. I'm just kidding. I'm very happy.
I don't know. Yay! I know, and I know that Llama's going to be going through Terry's case tonight. And when I sent it to her, she was like, "Of course you gave me the case with all the names," and I was like, "Yeah, my bad." But it's called Grace, and you just saw the script today, so it's fine. Everything will be good.
It's like we're reading it all for the first time. It'll be fine.
Oh, are you kidding me? I write these things like 48 hours ahead of time, and it's like I'm reading it for the first time. Even though I've looked into it. But tonight we're going to be talking about religious crimes. Oddly enough, both when Terry and I both chose crimes, we went cult. Accidentally, well, I did mine on purpose. I don't know if Terry ended up doing kind of cult stuff on purpose, but we definitely went cult with this one. This is cult heavy. So strap in for sure. But how are you doing? What you been up to?
What have I been up to? Not really a whole lot. A lot of behind the scenes work. I think the most exciting thing I've done this week is finish the show Chaos on Netflix, which just came out, and it's amazing. It took me like 4 days to watch it all. It's with Jeff Goldblum, so it can't be that bad.
What?
Yes, he plays.
No, it can't be.
He plays Zeus, so it's amazing. Highly
incredible.
It is incredible.
The baseball park here is undergoing a name change because they're also doing a venue change because they're building a new park. And they released the name yesterday, and it's CarMax Park because, of course, it is. And somebody, an alumni friend of mine from my college, he's pretty popular around here as an artist, and he had written like, if there aren't ginormous swinging doors when I enter, I'll be disappointed. And I was like, the marketing guys, they were too busy thinking about if they could, and they didn't think about if they should. And I was like, if I don't get driven in with a Jeep, I'm gonna be really unhappy.
Jurassic Park. It's one of my favorites.
Jurassic
ever. It's so good.
All of it's so good. I mean, that movie is something else.
Shirtless
the
Jeff
lines
Goldblum and dinosaurs. I mean,
on his side, like I want to paint him like one of my French ladies. Come on.
I saw that it came when they re-released it in 3D. We went and saw it. A sweaty Jeff Goldblum in 3D is not as magical as it sounds. By the way, just
at least it wasn't 4D.
That's true, but it was awesome in 3D. It was very cool.
I believe it, especially if it being Spielberg. He's going to do it right. So do it right or don't do it at all. Well, cool. I've gotten my kids into watching the Paralympics, which has been fun. We were watching the Olympics, but I was like, you guys really got to see the Paralympics because the amount that they overcome to do these amazing things is inspiring. My son and I got to watch the archery competition with Stutzman, and he's an archer. and he has no arms. He's got legs, and he fires a compound bow better than anybody I've ever seen.
Wow.
And he was ranked 19th and he beat out the second ranked and first ranked Chinese archers to win gold. And these were folks that had arms. And like he's got this
That's
strap
amazing.
that he flings forward, and then he hooks the compound bow into it, pulls it back, aims, and then he like just taps it with his chin, and then poof, and it's just phenomenal.
It's cool.
It was awesome too, because at the very first match, the judge turned to the person he was up against and looked and gave him a thumbs up, asking him if he's okay, and that guy gave him a thumbs up. He looked at Stutzman, gave him a thumbs up, and Stutzman gave him a big toe up, and it was the best thing I'd ever seen. It was fantastic. He like tips his hat with his foot to it's so good. I was so happy. It was such a great thing.
That's amazing.
If anybody gets a chance, yeah, I think if anybody gets a chance to watch the replay of that, or just go on YouTube and watch like the combination of clips from Stutzman, he's phenomenal. I'm sad because they said he was retiring, but just really impressive. Really impressive.
Retiring? What? Why?
I know. Well, he went out on top, I guess, right?
That's true. It's so impressive.
Yeah, we got to watch a little goalball tonight and blind soccer, which is, I don't understand how. Yeah, I know that was my face, but it's impressive. I mean, they have like, it's like a goalball. Have you ever seen goalball before?
No.
So they're wearing blindfolds, and they're wearing tape over their eyes, and then they have blacked out like ski goggles on, and it's like a small like badminton sized court, and there's 3 guys on from each team in front of a goal, and then they take turns going back and forth like rolling the ball trying to get it into the goal, and you have to block it hearing the bell of the ball, the bell that's in the ball. Yeah, and so it's kind of the same thing with the blind soccer, where they're taped over and they have their ski goggles on that are blacked out, and they're hearing like a couple of rattles that are in the ball, and they've got to track that and dribble it and get it to where they need to. And the only people who can see anything are the goalies, and it's up to the goalies to communicate with the teams, right? So it was just astounding. There's no way I'd be terrible at that.
I'm not skilled at anything. That's a good at all. Not skilled at anything.
There's a reason I mascotted for so long.
I think that's very cool that you're watching it with your kids too. Like, that's really awesome.
When they're not staring at a tablet or something, they'll watch with me. So they're like, "Oh, Dad." I'm like, I don't watch football every week. I don't watch soccer or baseball all the time. Just this once every 2 years. Give it to me, please.
All right. I'm glad we don't.
Be glad I don't watch it. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Not my thing. Right. That's okay. So Spetty Ross says, blind soccer. I'm going to stop complaining about all the things I think I can't do. That's honestly, watching this is very inspiring and impressive and awesome. And I know that they're there to compete, but they really are inspirational, and I hope they know that. It's and not in like a corny way, in a legitimately inspirational way.
Yeah.
Yep. Much unlike some of the things that we're going to cover in stupid news before we get into our cases. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Just got an awesome face paint job. What do you think?
I like turtles. Really, sometimes I don't watch the news.
Because we see this dude every day. I mean, every day.
I didn't make this kid pass out on my floor. People wanted to be here.
Oh, it's just like, dude, you get the best barrels ever, dude. Just
Customer out here, what's the best kind of firework to buy?
Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy?
Where are your parents?
That poor
Always fun.
weatherman, weather boy. He'll never get over it. Nobody will ever let him live it down. Not once, not ever. Okay, so you saw me looking these up, and my response was, "What the?" And this is why, because the article title is "Iceland encourages locals to throw baby puffins off cliffs."
What?
Why? So
Why?
for residents of Vestmannaeyjar, because it's Iceland, an island located just off the southern coast of Iceland, puffling season is a special time of year. Sanctioned by local officials, the people of the Iceland flock to the Iceland flock to the cliff sides with baby puffins in hand, eager to throw them over the side of it. Once baby puffins, called pufflings, reach maturity, they fly from their colony and spend several years at sea before eventually returning to land to breed. Residing in cliffside nests, the pufflings use the light of the moon to guide them out to the ocean. However, due to increased building development on the island's coastlines, some of the baby puffins get lost and head the wrong way, confusing human-made lights with moonlight. It is normal to find baby puffins scattered across town, hiding in crevices and corners, and this is when Puffling Patrol is put to work. Residents, old and young, head out into the night, armed with gloved hands, holding flashlights and cardboard boxes poked with holes, ready to snatch up any baby puffins that they come across. Apparently, it's likely that most will catch up to 10 a night. And there are two sisters that claim that they usually catch over 125 baby puffins a season.
Wow.
So the reason why that this is crucial to their survival is basically if you have one failed generation after another, obviously the population is through.
Sure.
Puffins mate for life, incubating one singular egg per season with no guarantee of laying each year beyond that. So it's really generations of Iceland villagers have tossed baby puffins for distance. They're encouraged. This is anybody who's as young as 4, as old as 90, encouraged to aid scientists in this data. So they get the puffin. They usually log the weight of the baby puffin on a dedicated website. And then you can see people just packed on the cliff sides, lined up shoulder to shoulder, preparing their pufflings for their first big journey. So it's just, it is. I will say this, though. When I first read the article, I was like, wait, the title, what? Huh?
Are we in a Robert Kennedy Jr. situation again? Just kidding. Call back the Hey Ho Show.
I just want to say the Hey Ho Show picked up on that, I think, before Late Night did. So
that's true.
Eat our hearts out.
A jacket that says Puffin Patrol. Oh
my gosh, wouldn't that be great?
Patrol.
It's got to be like a Letterman's jacket, But
yes.
Puffling Patrol is PP, so that we can find another. we can workshop that.
We're not mature enough for that. Somebody write that in our merch ideas. Puffin Patrol.
I will say this. No, go ahead.
I was just saying that's just very sweet. Now when they throw them over the cliffs, like they're surviving that, right? Like, is that?
Yeah.
They're
I don't think that the scientists would encourage that without them being able to do it. But what really makes me sad, and I think this goes for anywhere. Light pollution's terrible, but the fact that they're confused by man-made light versus the moon. Plus, it's adorable that they follow moonlight to get out to the water. Just so cute.
It is adorable.
Do I want what is
Puffin?
I think you do.
What does look like a baby puffin?
While you're looking that up, oh yeah, you look it up.
Okay, they're cute. They're
right?
Cute and fluffy, y'all. They're adorable.
Scientists tend to do things where there are scientists where I'm like, you're definitely making a difference, and then there are some that are like, are you really using your brain cells for good? And this is one of those. Engineers have created a new type of robot that places living fungi behind the controls because that's what we need. Living fungi behind controls of a robot.
Is this some Left Behind stuff? Because that's not good.
I don't know, but it sure as hell reminds me of like that fungi in the Mario Brothers movie with John Leguizamo or
That
Leguizamo.
movie.
You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yes.
Oh, yes.
It's
classic.
And so they're calling it a biohybrid robot that uses electrical signals from an edible type of mushroom called a king trumpet. That's my nickname in college. No. In order to move around and sense its environment. Let's see. So Anand Mishra, research associate in organic robotics lab at Cornell, said living systems respond to touch, they respond to light, they respond to heat, they respond to even some unknowns like signals. That's why we think, okay, if you wanted to build future robots, how can they work in an unexpected environment? We can leverage these living systems, and any unknown input comes in, the robot will respond to that. So different inputs such as ultraviolet light resulted in different outcomes for the way the robot moved. A video of one of the mushroom-controlled robots shows it moving slowly across the surface by pumping its robotic legs. Another biohybrid robot uses a wheeled system in order to move around. The robotic legs mushroom is very jealous of the wheeled system mushroom. So we've got ourselves a Mad Max situation going on. That's not in this article at all.
Does anybody else think this is a horrible idea? Already, continue.
I think it's terrible. Yeah, Captain said, what could go wrong? Correct. Yeah. Everything. It says, by growing mycelium into the electronics of a robot, we were able to allow the biohybrid machine to sense and respond to the environment. The potential for future robots could be to sense soil chemistry in row crops and decide when to add more fertilizer. For example, perhaps mitigating downstream effects of agriculture like harmful algal blooms. I think that's just that's a lame excuse for saying I wanted to put a mushroom in a robot. But apparently they've also done previous experiments where they've put an artificial worm brain inside of a Lego robot, which was able to recreate the creature's movements and intentions.
What? Wow.
First off, how do the scientists know what a worm brain's intentions are? I'm just saying.
I feel like, though, this fungi and worms are smarter than half the people out. They're what's taking our jobs. Really? Worm brains and fungi, you guys.
Yep.
That's what's going to
I'll tell you what.
Weird.
Speaking of jobs, nice. Helps me with the segue to the last article. Yeah. Workers in Japan cannot quit their jobs, and they hire resignation experts to help.
Okay.
So this is something that I knew a little bit about the culture of the professional life and working in Japan. However, this is insane. So Yuki Watanabe used to spend 12 hours every day toiling away in an office, and that's considered a short day.
Wow.
A typical 9 to 9 work day is the bare minimum. The latest I would leave the office would be 11 p.m., said the 24-year-old. So intense were the demands that Yuki, who used an alias to speak to CNN, for fear of jeopardizing future job prospects, began to develop health problems. She had shaky legs and stomach issues. She knew she had to quit, but there was one thing in the way: Japan's notoriously top-down work culture. Asking to leave work on time or taking some time off is tricky enough, but even trickier is tendering a resignation, which can be seen as the ultimate form of disrespect in the world's fourth biggest economy, where workers traditionally stick with one employer for decades, if not for a lifetime. In the most extreme cases, grumpy bosses rip up resignation letters and harass employees to force them to stay. She found a way to end the impasse. She turned to Momori, which is a resignation agency that helps timid employees leave their intimidating bosses. For the price of a, quote, fancy dinner, many Japanese workers hire these proxy firms to help them resign stress-free. The industry existed before COVID, but its popularity grew after the pandemic, after years of working from home pushed even some of Japan's most loyal workers to reflect upon their careers. There is no official count on the number of resignation agencies that have sprung up across the country, but those running them can testify to the surge in demand. It's just terrible. I mean, I can't imagine having to work in that fashion.
No, you have no time for anything.
Yeah, and like Japan has long had an overwork culture, and employees across various sectors, they all say that there's punishing hours, high pressure from supervisors, deference to the company. Those employers are widely known as black firms. And the situation was so pressing that the government had begun publishing a list of unethical employers to hamper their ability to hire and warn job seekers of the dangers of working with them. It's just terrible for their psyche. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And the stress has proven fatal for decades, and it's a phenomenon that they've called karoshi, which is death by overwork. And if you have to put in if you have to create a word,
Right.
you got issues. Yeah, right. Let's see. Last bit here. A 31-year-old political reporter from national broadcaster NHK died in 2017 after suffering heart failure caused by spending long hours on the job. She worked 159 hours of overtime in the month before her death. 5 years later, a 26-year-old doctor from a hospital in Kobe died by suicide after working more than 200 hours of overtime in a single month.
How is that even? Wow. You didn't know there was that many leftover hours.
It's just, I can't imagine a doctor at the end. I'll catch that doctor at the beginning of the month. Don't give me an appointment at the end of the month.
Yeah.
There's no way. That's just wild. I mean, some things definitely need to change. I know that the concept of staying with a company is pleasant for decades and decades, but the reality is that's not how it is anymore. And unfortunately, it's going to take them a little while to catch up. So.
And 200 hours of overtime, like that's wild.
Right. And I don't know what their overtime policies are. Like usually overtime is
Right.
like time and a half or something like that, but I doubt it. I doubt it. In fact, I bet you those are full-time jobs that don't give you overtime. That's just them working over the normal amount of
Right.
hours.
They're probably salary workers getting paid next to nothing and having to work that much. Wow.
Right.
That's wild.
So, ending on a positive note. But before we get into our cases, let's talk a little bit about what we're drinking.
Oh,
would you like to do the honors?
I shall. So tonight I'm drinking the remainder of my box of Franzia Moscato from Hey Ho Show on Friday. Still have plenty left. And my favorite part of the box is that it says fun with friends. So that's tonight. Fun with friends. That's what I've decided to
You
call
told
this
me that right. You told me that Lady in Gray asked how long is their normal day. Typically 12 hours, 9 to 9 is typically their day. So I loved it when you told me that because I was like, that's perfect. Fun with friends is great for a cult episode. Yay!
I don't know about that. I know what mine's about. So.
Well, my my case is based in Japan, and I was like, well, this is going to be fun. I like some things. I lived there for a while. In fact, this came from Tokyo. I'm wearing this kimono-ish robe. It's really more of a robe than a kimono, and it's got a dragon on the back, which makes me feel like the villain from Silence of the Lambs, or Red Dragon. Except it's not tattooed on me. But I got a couple of things from Japan. What I'm drinking is Sapporo Premium Black Beer. I think it's a dark lager mostly, but it's a Japanese beer. Let's see. It's brewed. That's funny. It's brewed in Vietnam. It's a Japanese beer though. It's brewed Brewed in Vietnam, it's imported and distributed from Tarrytown, New York, but it's Japanese. La la.
Checks out.
Checks out. But I also got this. I don't know. Have you ever seen these bottles? The Ramoon bottles?
No.
No. So this is a drink that I used to drink in Okinawa all the time. And it's like basically a carbonated, like soft drink of sorts. But what's really cool is in the top, instead of a cap, it has a marble that's keeping the carbonation in. And then in order to open it, they give you this cap, and this cap pops the marble in. Let's see if I can do it without breaking anything. Nope. Gonna have to use my thumb and leverage. Oh, there it is. So then the marble goes down to the bottom here, and then it opens everything up. So cool.
So it's like what, like a Sprite or something?
Yeah, it's like a Sprite of sorts. Yeah.
Okay.
It's called. Yeah. It's, sometimes you should worry if it says original flavor, but I wasn't about to buy the strawberry one, so.
It's probably delicious.
Probably. And then the last thing I got.
Did you get it from?
Yeah, this was. I mean, no, you can get this from a grocery store, usually in the Asian foods aisle.
Okay. I might like the strawberry one or the regular one.
Yeah. They have a couple. That was the only two that were there. And then the last thing I got was this lovely thing of wasabi peas. I love wasabi peas.
Do you?
So much.
I think it's well known that I probably don't. It's just best to assume that I don't. Aren't they spicy?
I mean, as spicy as wasabi is. So, anyways, I am fully decked out and put together and staying on brand. Thank you so much. Just to let everybody know, also staying on brand, as a warning, this episode does or possibly could contain graphic content. Adult language might not be suitable for all listeners, so be careful with the little ones if you're hitting play on the speaker system. But until then, feel free, have fun, listen, enjoy, and then, I'm sure there's some trigger warnings in here somewhere along the way. So
I'm sure.
So we'll let Llama start us off.
Okay. Well, I'm covering Terry's case tonight, which is called Adolfo de Jesús Constanzo, The Rise and Fall of a Narco-Satanist Cult Leader. Before I start this, I want to give a heads up that I do not speak Spanish. Okay, so I'm going to mispronounce a lot of things. We're just in this together, you guys. So prepare yourselves. I know I am.
It's going to be great.
It'll be great. It'll be fine. All right. So Adolfo de Jesús Constanzo was a Cuban-American serial killer, drug dealer, and cult leader whose reign of terror gripped Mexico in the late 1980s. Leading a notorious drug trafficking and occult gang in Matamoros and Tamaulipas, Mexico, Constanzo became infamous for his brutal, ritualistic killings. Dubbed the Narco-Satanist, or Los Narco-Santinos, see, you guys, I'm doing my best. Narco-Satanitos, Nikos, by the media. We're going with Narco-Satanists, guys. All right, I'm not even going to try.
I like Narco-Satanists. It's good.
We're going with Narco-Satanists, okay? Constanzo and his followers practice a twisted form of Palo Mayombe, a religion involving human and animal sacrifices. His cult, which included both men and women, operated with impunity for years, believing that their horrific rituals granted them supernatural protection and power. This article delves into the life of Adolfo Constanzo, his rise to power, and the brutal crimes that eventually led to his downfall. So we're going into some ritualistic killings, you guys. So be prepared.
Strap in.
This is not a fun time one at all.
This is not a fun time.
No, this is going to be dark. So Adolfo Constanzo was born on November 1st, 1962 in Miami, Florida, to Delia Aurora Gonzalez, a Cuban immigrant. His mother, Delia, was just 15 years old when she gave birth to Adolfo, the first of 3 children she would have with different fathers. Constanzo's early life was marked by a series of moves and tumultuous relationships. After the death of her first husband, Delia relocated to San Juan, Puerto Rico, where she remarried.
I just want to say, like, one man's enough.
Having multiple baby daddies. Not judging her.
Too much.
That's a lot to go through.
I don't want to have
multiple. I have one.
It is a lot to go through. Yeah.
Exhausting.
I don't know like what was going on in that, obviously, in this story. But all I know is that if I have to pull out the red yarn to figure out relationships, I might not want to do it.
Oh man. So despite being baptized as a Catholic and serving as an altar boy, Constanzo was introduced to other spiritual practices early on. His mother, who had a deep interest in the occult, took him on trips to Haiti, where he was exposed to voodoo rituals. This early exposure to the supernatural laid the foundation for what would become Constanzo's obsession with occult practices. In 1972, the family returned to Miami, where Constanzo's stepfather soon passed away, leaving them with a modest inheritance. As a teenager, Constanzo was apprenticed to a local sorcerer.
Apprenticed. You're good.
Apprenticed, okay, to a local sorcerer where he began practicing Paleomiobe, a religion that combines elements of African spirituality with Catholicism and involves the use of animal sacrifices. Constanzo's involvement in the occult deepened, and his mother, now remarried to a man involved in both Paleomiobe and drug dealing, encouraged his pursuits. The family's criminal activities escalated, with both Constanzo and his mother being arrested multiple times for theft, vandalism, and shoplifting.
I feel like they're Catholicing wrong.
I think the family that crimes together stays together. I don't know. But things are not looking good.
Unless somebody rats them out. No, they're not. Not at all.
So despite his troubled upbringing, Constanzo managed to graduate from high school, though he was expelled from a prep school. His early years were a precursor to the life of crime and violence that he would later embrace. Sorry, y'all, don't mind Elba Feet in the background. As a young adult, or we can say hi. Hi, Elba Feet. As a young adult, Adolfo Constanzo moved to Mexico City, where he quickly ingratiated himself with the city's elite. He met and recruited men who would become his loyal followers, including Martin Quintana, Jorge Montiez, and Omar Aria. Together, they established a lucrative business offering spiritual services, which included casting spells to bring good luck. These rituals often involved the sacrifice of animals, such as chickens, goats, snakes, and even more exotic creatures like zebras and lion cubs.
That they got from the Tiger King.
That they got from the Tiger King. Did he let in the dogs?
Do you think the whole time that they were doing this, they were just like, Jesus loves the little children?
I mean, it was part of his name.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, like, where'd they get the zebras and the lion cubs from?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I want to know. I really don't.
Right? Okay, where was I? Constanzo's client base was primarily composed of wealthy drug dealers and hitmen who were drawn to the violence and spectacle of his rituals. His reputation as a powerful sorcerer grew, and he attracted the attention of corrupt policemen and influential members of Mexico's drug cartels. The Gulf Cartel, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the region, was rumored to be associated with Constanzo's cult. As his power and influence grew, Constanzo's rituals became more sinister. He began raiding graveyards for human bones to use in his nganga, a ceremonial cauldron believed to hold spiritual power. However, bones from the dead were not enough for Constanzo and his followers. They believed that their rituals would be more potent if they used the spirits of the living, leading them to commit a series of brutal murders. The bodies of their victims, often mutilated beyond recognition, were found scattered around Mexico City. The cult's thirst for power and protection escalated to a point where Constanzo decided that they needed the brain of an American student to achieve their goals.
What?
This escalated for you guys.
Earlier you said sorcerer, and all I could think of was Rasputin from Anastasia, the cartoon.
Yes,
and then
him.
The little, what was the bat's name? Or not? Yeah, what was the bat's name? I can't remember what his name was, but he was the one who was like, "I give him a ha and a hi-ya and I kick her, sir." That's all of that is really what I'm sure there's some way to look it up.
But Rasputin, that's a different story for a different.
It's true.
What? Bartok? Was that his name?
Bartok.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I only saw Anastasia a few times when I was younger.
Yeah. I just remember that one line. It like lives rent free in my head.
All right. So let's go into these rituals because this is fun. All right. So the rituals conducted by Adolfo Constanzo and his followers were deeply rooted in a perverse interpretation of Palo Mayombe, an Afro-Cuban religion that involves communication with spirits through the use of sacred objects, including a nganga or cauldron. Traditionally, the nganga contains a mixture of sticks, soil, bones, and other items believed to have spiritual significance. In Constanzo's twisted version, however, these objects were replaced or supplemented with human remains, which he believed would grant him and his cult immense power. The rituals performed at Rancho Santa Elena were gruesome and barbaric. The cult believed that by sacrificing humans, they could appease the spirits and gain protection from law enforcement and rival drug cartels. The more significant the sacrifice, the greater the perceived power. Constanzo convinced his followers that these rituals were essential for their survival and success in the dangerous world of drug trafficking.
Or just don't traffic drugs.
Right. Or just not all around. I mean,
the other problem is perceived power. Not power, perceived power, right? Ah, jeez.
I mean, no spoilers, but I don't think this ends well for them.
No.
So apparently it wasn't working. So victims were often tortured before being killed. Their body parts used in the nganga, and the resulting concoction was sometimes consumed by the cult members who believed it would make them invincible. The bodies were dismembered and buried around the ranch, which eventually became a mass grave for the cult's victims. The level of brutality exhibited by the cult was unparalleled, and it instilled fear not only in their enemies, but also within the community at large. I bet. So we have the influence of Palo Mayombe and Santeria. So to understand the mindset of Adolfo Constanzo and his followers, it is essential to explore the religious and cultural background that influenced their beliefs and practices. Palo Mayombe, like Santeria, is a syncretic religion that blends elements of African spirituality with Catholicism. Both religions originated among enslaved Africans who were brought to the Caribbean and Latin America during the transatlantic slave trade. These enslaved individuals perceived their spiritual traditions by merging them with the Christian practices of their colonizers. Santeria is perhaps the more well-known of the two religions. There's a song. with a focus on
I don't
worshiping deities.
practice Santeria.
But we named the song that. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Anyway, Santeria is perhaps the more well-known of the two religions, with a focus on worshiping deities known as orishas, who are associated with Catholic saints. Devotees of Santeria often perform rituals that include offering of food and the sacrifice of animals, such as chickens or goats. These practices are meant to honor the orishas and seek their guidance or protection. Payomiombi, on the other hand, is considered a darker and more esoteric religion. It involves the use of a ngange, which is believed to house powerful spirits that can be invoked for various purposes, including protection, healing, and cursing enemies. The nganga is often filled with items of spiritual significance, such as sticks, earth, and bones, which are believed to connect the practitioner with the spirit world. I wonder how many times I'm going to say that word tonight. Nganga.
Just for those of you who don't know, it's spelled in a way that never should be. I'm sure it makes more sense in like a different, like, but it's Nganga. So it's not Nganga it doesn't roll off the tongue.
No, no, it doesn't. And it took me like 10 minutes to learn how to say it right. And I'm only getting it right every now and then.
I
But what
love
an
it.
interesting word. It is an interesting, I learn new things every day.
Mhm.
So while Payomikombi is a legitimate religion practiced by many, it has been stigmatized due to the actions of individuals like Constanzo, who perverted its teachings for their own gain. Constanzo's rituals were a grotesque distortion of the religion, focusing on violence and the use of human remains, which is not representative of the traditional practices of Payomiombi. Sara Aldrete's involvement in Constanzo's cult is one of the most intriguing aspects of the case. Born in 1964 in Matamoros, Tamaulipas, Mexico, Aldrete appeared to lead a double life. On one hand, she was a model student, excelling academically and participating as a cheerleader at Texas Southmost College in Brownsville, Texas. On the other hand, she was deeply fascinated by the occult and quickly became entangled in the world of drug trafficking through her connections with the Hernandez family. So quite the quite the double life there for her. Aldrete was introduced to Adolfo Constanzo through her relationship with Serafin Hernandez Garcia and his uncle Elio Hernandez Rivera. Drawn to the power and mystique that Constanzo exuded, Aldrete became his most devoted follower and was elevated to the position of high priestess within the cult. Her intelligence and charisma made her a valuable asset to Constanzo, who relied on her to help manage the cult and its activities. As La Mandrina, Aldrete was responsible for overseeing the cult's operations, especially when Constanzo was away on drug runs or other businesses. She played a key role in recruiting new members, including those from Hernandez's drug cartel, and was involved in the planning and execution of the cult's ritual murders. Despite her outward appearance as a diligent student and upstanding citizen, Aldrete was deeply complicit in the horrors committed by the cult. It's a little tongue twistery there for me. Aldrete's dual identity as both a college student and a cult leader shocked those who knew her. Her arrest and subsequent conviction revealed the extent of her involvement in the cult's activities, shattering the image of the innocent young woman that she had carefully cultivated. Sorry, pardon me. The discovery of the cult and its activities had a profound impact on the communities of Matamoros and Brownsville, as well as on the law enforcement agencies in both Mexico and the United States. The sheer brutality of the murders, coupled with the ritualistic nature of the killings, sent shockwaves through the region. For years, the cult had operated with impunity, largely because of the fear it instilled in both its victims and potential witnesses. The belief that Constanzo and his followers possessed supernatural powers made them seem untouchable. Many people in the community were aware of the strange and often terrifying rituals taking place at Rancho Santa Elena, but they were too afraid to speak out. This atmosphere of fear allowed the cult to continue its activities unchecked for years. The
Just
involvement
a
of U.S.
vicious circle.
Yeah, right? Oh gosh, this story's dark, you guys. This is not great. It's dark. The involvement of U.S. authorities in the search for Mark Kilroy marked a turning point in the investigation. The pressure from American law enforcement, combined with the media attention surrounding the case, forced Mexican authorities to act. The cooperation between the two countries was instrumental in dismantling the cult and bringing its members to justice. The case also highlighted the challenges faced by law enforcement when dealing with organized crime groups that incorporate religious or occult practices into their operations. The intersection of criminal activity with deeply held religious beliefs made it difficult for authorities to predict the actions of the cult members or to understand their motivations. This complexity required a coordinated and multifaceted approach to the investigation. The story of Adolfo Constanzo and his cult captivated the public and media on both sides of the border. The gruesome details of the murders, combined with the occult practices of the cult, made for sensational headlines that fueled public fascination and fear. Newspapers, television shows, and magazines covered the case extensively, often focusing on the more lurid aspects of the story. The media dubbed the group Los Narcosanticos, or the Narco-Satanists, as we're going for the rest of the thing. A name that underscored the perceived connection between the cult's criminal activities and their religious practices. This label, while effective in capturing public attention, also contributed to the stigmatization of religions like Palo Mayombe and Santeria, which were unfairly associated with the horrific crimes committed by the cult. The case also sparked debates about the influence of the cult on vulnerable individuals and the potential dangers of syncretic religions. While many practitioners of Palo Mayombe and Santeria condemned the actions of Constanzo and his followers, the case nonetheless fueled misconceptions and fears about these religions. The media coverage often failed to distinguish between the legitimate practices of these religions and the twisted version practiced by the cult, leading to a broader public misunderstanding. I mean, they're not making Palo Mayombe and Santeria look good at all. I'm sure
No,
that went really poorly for them.
no, not at all. And I mean, we had Satanic Panic here, right? And that whole Satanism, I mean, it really put it in a terrible light. When I will say this, when I looked up the tenets of, like the Satanic Temple, I started posting them on my Facebook now and again. And I was getting a lot of like church people being like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, great. That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then at the end, I posted all of them and said what they were. Because the tenets in and of themselves are fantastic. I mean, they're for good people. If you follow them, you're great. But like you put that Satanic Temple on the top of it and they're like, I'm not looking at it. I'm not reading it. I'm not considering it, blah, 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 blah. So it's one of those things where, I mean, the media really drives that narrative home, right?
Very much so. I mean, these people seem to fit it, though. So,
yes,
people like this that make things look bad. Some extremists.
Yep, this is why we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things. I don't know much about Palo Mayombe or Santeria, but I will say I'm going to look into them. I enjoy theology a lot. Don't know much about either one of those. So I'm certainly going to check that out. All right, so back to our story. The story of Adolfo Constanzo and his cult has left an indelible mark on popular culture. Over the years, it has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and television shows, including an episode of Oxygen Network's deadly cults. The case has also inspired fictional portrayals in movies and TV series where elements of the story have been adapted into crime dramas and horror films. I must say, I have not heard of this. Or I should say, if I have heard of this, I didn't know what I was hearing about. Like, is this the only case where they always talk about there being these ritual sacrifices? I don't know. Like, is this the case they base it off of all the time?
I have little to no knowledge of any of this. So
I know. Me either. Actually, I got it like 3 hours ago. So I have questions.
aha!
I have questions. Have any of you in chat heard of this before? Be curious to know. All right. So the legacy of the cult continues to influence the way society views the intersection of crime, religion, and the occult. The case is often cited in discussions about the dangers of charismatic leaders who exploit religious beliefs for their own gain. It also serves as a cautionary tale about the potential for extreme violence when criminal organizations adopt ritualistic practices as part of their operation. In Mexico, the story of Los Narco-Satanists is part of a broader narrative about the country's struggle with drug-related violence and corruption. The involvement of high-ranking officials in the cult's activities highlighted the pervasive influence of drug cartels within the Mexican government and law enforcement agencies. The case also exposed the vulnerabilities of communities living in the shadow of these powerful criminal organizations. The psychological dynamics within Constanzo's cult offer a window into the broader phenomenon of cult behavior. Cults often form around a charismatic leader who possesses the ability to manipulate and control their followers through a combination of psychological, emotional, and sometimes physical means. Constanzo's followers were drawn to him not only because of his promises of power and protection, but also because of the sense of belonging and purpose that the cult provided. Cults often prey on individuals who are searching for meaning or who feel disenfranchised from mainstream society. In the case of Constanzo's followers, many were involved in the dangerous world of drug trafficking, where violence and betrayal were commonplace. The cult offered them a sense of security, however illusionary, and a belief that they were part of something larger and more powerful than themselves. I feel like a lot of groups exhibit cult-like behavior without actually being a cult. Like,
It's
that's
very
just
true.
kind of like
It's very true.
human nature, human groups, like even on a small scale, are cult-like.
Yeah, I mean, if you look up some of the qualities of or characteristics, generally accepted characteristics of a cult, to a certain degree, a lot of groups will absolutely follow that. I think in the point in which a leader becomes, what's the word I'm looking for? Infallible, and basically replaces every bit. The part of the cults in which you're cut off from family, that kind of a thing, I think then they really start getting into the dangerous side of things. However, you can get very dangerous without those things. Lady in Gray had said that there's a Criminal Minds episode where those religions are practiced. And then Bells said that it's common knowledge down here in Texas. So we know our resident expert to go to.
I know, Bells, you and I are going to have some talks about this, which I'm sure will be a pleasure. They always are. I very much enjoy those conversations. So please do tell me all about it. We don't really have diverse religions up here in Ohio, so it's pretty standard. So I would love to learn more, for sure. All right, so Constanzo's belief in his own magical powers became increasingly delusional. Surprise. As he saw greater control over the drug trade. I mean, I bet the drugs weren't helping with that delusion at all. He approached the Calzadas one of the most powerful drug families in Mexico, demanding to become a full business partner. When they refused, 7 members of the Calzada family mysteriously disappeared. Their bodies were later discovered gruesomely mutilated with parts like fingers, toes, ears, and even spines missing. These were used in Constanzo's rituals, which he believed would protect him from harm and ensure the success of his criminal enterprises. Yikes, bro. That's not great.
Nope. Nope.
Wow.
Nope.
Okay. With the Cazaldas out of the way, Constanzo aligned himself with the Hernandez brothers, another influential drug cartel family. During this time, he
Not
also met
those
Sara.
Hernandez brothers.
What'd you say?
I said not those Hernandez brothers.
What Hernandez
Different.
brothers?
Weren't they the Hernandez brothers, the 2 that murdered their parents? Weren't they?
The Menendez brothers.
Menendez. See, look, don't know nothing.
You were close.
Just when you think you're not sure, I take the bar that much lower. All right, go me.
Oh no, that's okay. You were close-ish. I'll give you partial credit for the Des part.
Yes, Des.
All right. So during this time, he also met Sara Aldrete, a young woman who would become his second demand. Aldrete, known as La Madrina and the Godmother, was a college student with a fascination for the occult. She quickly rose through the ranks of the cult, becoming Constanzo's most trusted lieutenant and overseer of his followers. In 1988, Constanzo moved his operations to Rancho Santa Elena, a remote property in the desert owned by the Hernandez family. The ranch became the epicenter of the cult's activities, where they stored large quantities of drugs and carried out increasingly sadistic ritual murders. Some of their victims were strangers, while others were rival drug dealers who had crossed them. The rituals at Rancho Santa Elena were gruesome, with victims often tortured before being killed. The cult members believed that these human sacrifices made them invincible to law enforcement and invincible in their criminal activities. The cult's activities reached a horrifying climax on March 13th, 1989, when Constanzo's followers abducted Mark Kilroy, a 21-year-old pre-med student from the United States. Kilroy had been in Mexico on spring break, enjoying the nightlife in Matamoros. Unbeknownst to him, Constanzo had ordered his followers to capture an Anglo male for their next human sacrifice, believing that this would grant them even greater power. Ugh, that's horrible.
Yuck.
Kilroy was taken to Rancho Santa Elena, where he was subjected to unimaginable torture before being killed by Constanzo with a machete. Constanzo removed Kilroy's brain and spinal column for use in his rituals, believing that this would make him and his fellow followers invincible. The discovery of Kilroy's mutilated body would later lead to the unraveling of Constanzo's cult. That's not great.
Yeah, no, not at all.
No. Mark Kilroy's disappearance sparked an international investigation that brought unprecedented pressure on Mexican authorities. Kilroy's uncle, a special agent with the U.S. Customs Service, and his connections to ensure the case received top priority. The search for Kilroy led to increased police pressure in Matamoros, putting Constanzo and his followers under scrutiny. It's kind of ridiculous that it took this guy for Mexico.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Because, like, that's a lot of people that they ended up finding. Did I say that number yet? I don't know if I did say the number yet, but it's a lot. It's not great. No. All right. So on April 1st, 1989, one of Constanzo's followers, Serafin Hernandez Garcia, made a fatal mistake. Believing himself to be protected by Constanzo's magic, he brazenly drove past a police roadblock in Matamoros, leading authorities straight to Rancho Santolina. Always the one guy. The one guy will ruin
Just
it for
the
everybody.
one. There's always that really slow rhinoceros in the back. Jumanji taught me that.
Right? A search of the property uncovered 65 pounds of marijuana and the gruesome remnants of Costanzo's rituals, including the Nganga containing human remains. The ranch's caretaker identified Mark Kilroy with a photograph, and his body, along with the bodies of 14 other victims, was exhumed from the property. Oh, there's the number. So 15
Yeah,
people
I'm
they
sure it was
found.
more.
Yeah, that's not great. As the investigation continued, members of the Hernandez family and other cult followers were arrested and confessed to their roles in the murders. However, Constanzo, Sara Aldrete, and a few of their closest associates managed to evade capture, fleeing to Mexico City. For over a month, Constanzo remained on the run, but his paranoia grew as the net closed around him. On May 6, 1989, Mexican police finally tracked Constanzo and his followers to an apartment building in Mexico City. Constanzo, who believed that his magical powers made him invincible, spotted a police car outside the building and panicked. Oh, shocking. What? Mind-blowing. He opened fire with a machine gun, initiating a 45-minute gun battle with the police. 45 minutes. Wow.
That's a lot of bullets.
That is a lot of bullets. Excuse me.
Captain
George
says, "Am I the
Constanzo
only
doing-
one imagining George Constanza doing this?" I think that yep. Mm-hmm.
It's really hard not to.
Right. Jerry!
Realizing that I love George. Realizing that his capture was imminent, Constanzo ordered one of his followers, Alvaro de Leon, to kill him and his lover, Martin Quintana. That's right, Martin comes back into the picture. De Leon complied, riddling them with bullets before surrendering to the police. Sara Aldrete, who had attempted to flee the apartment, was also arrested at the scene. The capture and death of Adolfo Constanzo brought an end to one of the most terrifying cults in modern history. In total, 14 cult members were charged with various crimes, including murder, drug trafficking, and obstruction of justice. Sara Aldrete, along with Elio and Serafine Hernandez, was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to over 60 years in prison. That was it, by the way. De Leon received a 30-year sentence for his role in the killings. The horrific crimes of Constanzo and his followers left a lasting impact on Mexico and the United States. The case became a media sensation, with newspapers dubbing the cult the narco-Satanist. The public was both fascinated and horrified by the idea that a group of seemingly ordinary people could commit such atrocities in the name of their religious belief. And that is my case. Well, Terry's case. And that was, I'm going to need 3 more glasses of wine after that.
Yeah, she wasn't lying when she said she needs a shot instead of a glass of wine, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
No.
man. Well, that was very violent. Yikes.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's a really hard one to interject with any sort of humor or comments or things like that. That's really, really messed up. Drink that wine from your bottom cauldron, Captain says.
Oh, Captain.
It's called a Nganga. All right. That's our word of the day.
It
It's
is.
the-
It's like, yeah, I will try. Captain said, which I will try not to spell. It's true. So we're going from Mexico to Japan, as I mentioned before. And I am calling this case, a bad case of gas. Shoko Asahara and the toxic rise and fall of Aum Shinrikyo. So today we are unraveling the story of a man who took the phrase bad vibes to a whole new level. Shoko Asahara. You may not know the name, but trust me, this guy made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Imagine a blend of doomsday prepping, weaponized nerve gas, and self-proclaimed messiah with an affinity for posing in dramatic robes. It's gonna be that kind of wild ride.
Okay.
Shoko Asahara, the charismatic, read super creepy, leader of Aum Shinrikyo cult, managed to convince thousands of followers that he was the second coming of somebody important. And in true cult fashion, things went from let's meditate and find enlightenment to how about we unleash sarin gas in a Tokyo subway really fast. So,
What?
Let's get into the life and crimes of Aum Shinrikyo Shoko Asahara, the man who somehow made mass murder part of his spiritual journey.
Okay.
Just
I thought mine was dark. Whoa. Okay. Okay.
It's not like I tried not to cover too much of the dark stuff, but it's important to. I mean, what they did was it's dark in the way that like you wouldn't know that it was happening until you were impacted.
Yeah.
So Shoko Asahara was born Chizuo Matsumoto on March 2nd, 1955. Don't worry, we've got a whole bunch of correction. We have one really dedicated troll tonight.
That's okay.
Really dedicated. And okay. So either myself or the mods will immediately ban them. Sorry, everybody. Anyways,
they're the best mods in all the land.
Yeah.
It's
correct. So Chitsuo Matsumoto on March 2nd, 1955 was born in Yatsushiro, Kumamoto Prefecture, Japan, on the southern island of Kyushu, and was the fourth of 7 children. His family was poor. His father was a tatami mat maker, and one of his older brothers had almost no vision and attended a school for the blind. Asahara was born partially blind, with vision only in one eye, and attended the same school for the blind. And his parents decided to send him and his younger brother, who had normal eyesight, to the same school because the children received a government subsidy and free meals. I don't blame him, be honest. Despite his disability, he exhibited a dominant personality, often bullying other students. A critical biography by Shoko Egawa suggested that Asahara was obsessed with acquiring money and power while he was in school. He had saved $30,000 by the time he graduated from high school.
Wow.
Which is wild. Right? It's a lot of lunch money. He also ran unsuccessfully for student body president in elementary, junior high, and senior high schools, and he showed a mastery of physical fitness and body control, earning a black belt in judo while still in school. After finishing school, Asahara attempted to pursue a career in medicine, but failed to gain admission to medical school. Instead, he moved to a Tokyo suburb and turned to acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, which are common professions for visually impaired individuals in Japan. In 1978, Asahara married Tomoko Ishii. He would have several kids with her. It's said that Tomoko has now become a senior executive in Aum Shinrikyo, and one of their kids, an 11-year-old, is prominent in the sect, but there's very little known about his family life, which, quite frankly, is probably for the best, to be honest. Asahara's interest in spiritual matters began in the early 1980s when he became involved in various religious and esoteric practices. There's that word again, esoteric.
There is that word. The second word of the day. Next to Nganga.
Right. There are a lot of right. Nganga, esoteric Nganga. There are a lot of parallels in this. A lot of parallels. So he studied Chinese astrology and Taoism and experimented with yoga and meditation. His spiritual explorations were also influenced by Buddhism, Christianity, and Hinduism. So again, we're looking at a connection between. It's like a blending of multiple religions to get to what you want, right?
Okay.
By 1984, Asahara had begun to attract followers, leading to the formation of a small group that would eventually evolve into the cult known as Aum Shinrikyo. So in 84, Asahara founded a yoga and meditation group. It was called Aum Shinsen no Kai, which is Aum Divine Being Society, which did become Aum Shinrikyo, which means Supreme Truth. The group initially presented itself as a spiritual organization focused on self-improvement, combining elements of Buddhism, Hinduism, and apocalyptic prophecies, and it was a 15-person meditation group. Asahara claimed to have reached enlightenment and positioned himself as a guru with special powers, including the ability to levitate and read minds. Ooh. There's a woman with really long nails on TV that does that too. I can't remember what her name is.
I don't know.
But yeah, in his meditation sessions during this time, he claimed that the god Shiva had been revealed to him and had appointed him Abiraketsu no Makoto, which is the god of light who leads the armies of the gods, who was to build the kingdom of Shambhala, a utopian society. It's just fun to say. A utopian society made up of those who had developed psychic powers. This is sounding more and more like Scientology. Aum Shinrikyo began attracting a following, particularly among young professionals, students, and scientists. The group promised spiritual awakening and salvation from the apocalypse that Asahara claimed was imminent. As the membership grew, so did Asahara's ambitions. In 1989, the group was officially recognized as a religious organization in Japan, giving it tax-exempt status and legal protections. Oh, yay.
Uh-oh.
What else led to their rise is kind of important because it quickly grew into a movement with almost 50,000 members. So there had to have been something. John Paracchini, in a chapter from the book Aptitude for Destruction, wrote that there were three aspects of the group that accounted for the growth. One, Aum was the creation of Shoko Asahara, its founder. He was charismatic, and he was a spiritual guru. Number two, Aum learned how to raise money, ultimately amassing considerable wealth via donations from followers and its businesses, both legal and illegal. And then three, Aum learned... Oh, we're back. Three, Aum learned to operate in ways that exploited the national and foreign environments in which it functioned. In addition, the group appealed to a part of the younger population that wanted personal fulfillment, and it exploited the religious tolerance of Japan. In other countries, Aum capitalized on Russia's vulnerabilities as a newly created post-communist country and the societal openness of countries such as the United States and Australia. That's right, they were in all three of those countries. In addition, in the same chapter, Paracchini writes that Aum's evolution is divided into 5 periods. The first was an embryonic religious group that attracted Japanese adherents, mostly young people. Members were seeking a peace state of being and freedom from their troubles on this earth. That period lasted until the group's first killing. The second began in fall of 1988, continued until the group's complete failure in the not the group's failure, but like their failure running in the 1990 national election. In 1988, a young group member died during an initiation ceremony in front of Asahara and other group members. In August of 1989, the group was granted official religious corporation status, like I said, giving it privileges. This caused dramatic growth. It included it because they basically legitimized it, right? Including an increase in net worth from less than 430 million yen to over 100 billion yen, which in 2024 dollars is $7 million to $1.3 billion. So by the end of that time, that growth ended up 1.3 billion US dollars.
That is wild.
Today. You know what's more wild? It only took 6 years.
What?
Yeah, and they went from membership from 20 members to 20,000 members by 92.
See?
Yep. So despite this, Aum leaders feared the death of that initiate would adversely influence the government authorities, who were considering an appeal of their decision to delay granting the group certification as religious organization. So they did what any religious group would do and disposed of the dead member's body quietly. Because of course they did. After that, they killed another group member who saw the first death and wanted to leave the organization. And Asahara said that, quote, "This killing was necessary to allow Aum to flourish and fulfill its mission of salvation." Asahara's feelings of grandiosity and paranoia about being prevented from achieving Aum's goals were stoked by these two deaths, and the group's membership did eventually slow. There was bad media coverage, and relatives of members had already formed an Aum Shinrikyo Victim Society, and Aum found that that creation of that society proved that there was a conspiracy against Asahara, because they're going to make anything work for them. My goodness gracious. You know what's sad is that somebody created that many accounts with that many emails. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Very lonely. You are very lonely. The group's membership, I said that already. Blah. The Victim Society retained Tsutsumi Sakamoto, a civil rights attorney who began to investigate a number of Aum activities that he found suspicious. In response, Asahara ordered a small group of his most devoted followers to kill Sakamoto. In the course of the killing, the Aum assassins felt they also should kill Sakamoto's wife and 14-month-old son.
Oh no.
That's
not great.
Let's see. Phase 3 followed the defeat in the 1990 elections, and the themes were a rising. So Phase 3 followed the defeat, and the themes were a rising case of paranoia and the devolvement into a more delusional worldview. Asahara seriously thought the full slate of Aum candidates was going to be elected. However, they got an embarrassingly low number of votes, and that further stoked those conspiracy thoughts. So Asahara felt alienated and rejected. There was a decrease in the number of new members and an increase in the number of members who wanted to leave. Asahara's words became apocalyptic and violent, and this period established the ideology for Aum's weapons development and procurement programs, because why not, right? And part of this included killing people simply to, quote, liberate them, and using poison as a method of societal purging. Asahara alleged the U.S. military was attacking Aum Shinrikyo and its facilities with chemical weapons. Irony. This created a pretext that justified their military prep and development of chemical weapons. Phase 4. My goodness gracious. Jeez Louise. Let's see. Phase 4 occurred sometime after the elections, from 1992 to 1993, and continued until the 95 Tokyo subway attack. The group increased or enhanced their ambition of developing weapons and using their offices to amass weapons. Aum's violence at this point extended beyond attacks on its own members and became to include discrete assassinations, to include in members for a higher purpose, to assassinations of outside critics. In July of 94, they released Sarin near a dormitory that housed 3 judges. The attack killed 8 people and injured over 500 more, including the judges. The case they were listening to was a land dispute between Aum Shinrikyo and the community, and the case was subsequently postponed. They, in order to do this, they used a converted refrigerator truck and released a cloud of sarin which floated near the homes of the judges. Police investigation focused only on an innocent local resident, Yoshiyuki Kouno, and failed to implicate the cult at the time. It was only after the Tokyo subway attack that they made that link and that connection. The final phase, phase 5, occurred with the trials of Aum leaders and key operatives. The organization has since diminished in size and capability, and it's apologized to the victims of the Aum attacks, changed its name, and it's broken into two factions. One's focused on peaceful spiritual activities, and the other one's still devoted to Asahara.
Sure.
Now, over time, and as we talked about, Asahara's teachings grew increasingly extreme, focusing on an apocalyptic vision in which only Aum Shinrikyo followers would survive a global cataclysm. Sounds familiar. He prophesied. He said something. He prophesied that World War III was imminent and that Aum Shinrikyo would play a central role in the coming events. The cult began amassing wealth through donations, businesses, and even extortion, enabling Asahara to expand his influence and acquire properties in Japan and abroad. Now, in terms of a bird's eye view of this cult, like I said, we had a blend of various religious traditions. They became increasingly focused on the end of the world. Asahara claimed to be the reincarnation of various religious figures, including Jesus Christ and Buddha, or whatever he felt that day, apparently. Asahara preached that humanity was on the brink of destruction due to its moral decay. And this is amazing. Only Aum Shinrikyo members would be saved. The group engaged in rigorous spiritual practice. They did yoga, fasting, meditation. But over time, those practices became intense and abusive, with followers subjected to physical and psychological stress. And Asahara's teachings also included the idea of poa, which he interpreted as the transfer of spiritual merit to others, including through killing those deemed enemies of the cult. Because, of course, if you kill for him, you have spiritual merit. Why not?
Wow.
Yeah. Shinrikyo was a highly hierarchical with Asahara. I made a joke and didn't even think I was going to do it. Asahara was at the top as the supreme leader. Below him were a group of holy monks who managed the day-to-day operations and enforced Asahara's directives. Aum shadowed the structure of the Japanese government and organized into 21 identifiable ministries and departments, with each one headed by 21 of the 23 closest members to Asahara. You had things like the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Finance. You had Ministry of Health and Welfare, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Vehicles. You had Eastern New and Western Followers Agency, and every single one of these had a holy monk that was the head of it. Lady in Gray asked, did it have worldwide membership? At least in Russia, the United States, Australia, and Japan. So yes. The cult was secretive and insular, with members cut off from their families. Tale as old as time. The inner circle of the cult was heavily involved in illegal activities, including the production of chemical and biological weapons. We're going to talk more about that in a second. So as Aum Shinrikyo grew more extreme, it began engaging in criminal activities to achieve its apocalyptic goals. The cult conducted experiments with chemical and biological agents, including sarin gas, I said this so many times today, botulinum toxin, and anthrax in preparation for what they believe would be an inevitable conflict. In 94, Aum Shinrikyo carried out its first sarin gas attack in Matsumoto, Japan, as mentioned above. The attack was a test run for a more significant operation. We're going to talk about that more in just a bit. At the end of 1994, the cult broke into the Hiroshima factory of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in an attempt to steal technical documents on military weapons, such as tanks and artillery. In December of 94 and January of 95, Masami Tcwt synthesized 100 to 200 grams of VX, which was used to attack 3 people. December 2nd of 94, Noboru Mitsuno, believed to have assisted former members of Aum Shinrikyo, let's see, he was attacked with syringes containing VX gas, which left him in a serious condition. Tadahito Hamaguchi, suspected of being a spy by Asahara, was attacked at 7 a.m. on December 12th, 94. This was an attack by another Aum member who sprinkled the nerve agent on his neck. He collapsed after trying to chase them and died 10 days later, having been in a deep coma the whole time. March 20th of 95, Aum Shinrikyo members released sarin gas on the Tokyo subway system, and we're going to talk about that right now. So, Aum believed Armageddon to be inevitable in the form of a global war involving the United States and Japan, that non-members were doomed to eternal hell, but could be saved if killed by cult members, and that only members of the cult would survive the apocalypse and would afterwards build the kingdom of Shambhala. On top of that, Asahara was deteriorating and developed health anxiety and expressed suicidal views. In addition, in 1990, they ran 25 candidates in the election. Like I mentioned, they received a grand total of just under 1,800 votes. So not great. Asahara, right? Wah, just sad trombone it. Just sad trumpet mushroom or whatever that thing was called.
Not the mushrooms, they're taking over. Not the fungi.
Right? That's what he should have invested in. So because of this, Asahara did what anyone would do after not winning an election. He blamed it on Freemasons and Jews, of course.
Well,
because science.
Obviously.
It's just what we do.
They got the lasers, the space lasers, and everything.
Right. So the Freemasons and Jews caused Asahara to order Aum to produce botulinum and phosgene to overthrow the Japanese government. So, damn cliche. Members became disillusioned, as mentioned before. They defected, which strengthened the attitude that those who were not enlightened deserved to be destroyed. So everything that was happening to weaken the group only served to more militarize and strengthen the group for the people who stayed, because that's how charismatic Asahara was.
Wow.
Yeah. Attempts to stock up on botulinum toxin were unsuccessful. Saiichi Endo was was a member who was tasked with getting this. They actually attempted to produce it initially using 3 2,600-gallon fermenters. They ended up making a brown soupy broth that wasn't purified instead. But even if they did purify it, reports say it would have consisted mostly of like a bacterial cultivation. And other than this part made me chuckle just a little bit. Other than one of the workers falling into the fermenter and nearly drowning, there were no impacts from any of this like creation. But in total, they made 50 batches of 2,400 gallons of this stuff that
doesn't do anything
effective. Right.
Smart.
So despite that, they loaded it in April 1990 into 3 trucks that were equipped with spray devices. This is despite those reports that it had no impact on mice that they tested it on. The poor mices. They were going to spray it at 2 U.S. naval bases, Narita Airport, the Diet Building, which is the government building, the Imperial Palace, and the headquarters of rival religious groups. Cue West Side Story. And for those of you who know West Side Story, when you're an Aum all the way from your first gasping breath to your last gasping breath because you almost drowned in the fermenter. I think that's how it goes. Asahara, at the same time, said that the apocalyptic war couldn't save folks outside of the cult. The spraying attacks failed to cause any problems. Despite this, and thanks to Asahara telling his folks to go to a 3-day seminar and seek shelter, many of the 1,270 people who attended the seminar became devout monks.
Oh.
Aum used... Yeah, right? Yeah. Aum used 14 dummy companies to purchase acres of land in Namino and began building a compound incorporating facility, which is funny, really, because this is pretty much exactly how Walt Disney bought up Florida so that they didn't know what he was ultimately planning to do there. And, like, I just imagine Asahara watching, like, Snow White and having this eureka moment. So, it's awesome.
I bet he whistled.
Anyways, I hope so. I hope he whistled while he worked.
I can't whistle.
One thing's for sure,
Sorry.
this troll has some kind of fetish with feet. Anyways, the public was against them.
Get out
right?
here.
The public was. It's just it is something that somebody without any female presence in their life would comment on.
Right.
The public.
Pathetic.
So sad. The public was against them, thought they acted illegally in doing this, and a police investigation resulted in the arrest of several members. Asahara then feared a police raid, and he ordered that all biological and chemical weapons be destroyed. From then on, they promised to focus on non-violent strategies. Until they didn't. The cult relied on mainstream methods to attract other members, which included multiple TV appearances by Asahara. They also started Aum Shinrikyo broadcasting radio in Russia in April of 92. But as mentioned before, Asahara's mental health continued to deteriorate, and he said he was having hallucinations and experiencing paranoia. He no longer could be found doing public appearances other than staying on the radio, and said that the world, because of this, the world was keeping him from fulfilling his destiny as Christ. Yeah, that's it.
Convenient.
Right? At the same time, he replaced his predominantly female group of top advisors with more aggressive men. This in turn led to the startup of the violent campaign that we know of. He he published a book that was a little on the nose, Declaring Myself the Christ. He laid out his doomsday prophecy. Again, that included World War III, and the final conflict would end with nuclear Armageddon. He said he was going to take on the sins of the world. And to that I say, how kind of you, sir. I have enough for everybody. He also claimed to see dark conspiracies that were propagated by the Jews, Freemasons, the Dutch, the British royal family, and rival Japanese religions. Of course. Because making a random group of people the enemy makes it a lot easier to sell your shit. I'm not sure what the Dutch did to them or him, but perhaps he was the victim of a Dutch oven. And, well, he said he'd had it. Or he saw Austin Powers 3 and heard Michael Caine insult the Dutch and said, that is it. In September of 92, Asahara was made president of the Okamura. That's right. Asahara was made president of the Okamura Ironworks because the president was a member. 90% of the... Tell me... When I explain this to you, I want you to tell me what this sounds like currently. Okay. Asahara is made president. 90% of the staff are dismissed. They're replaced with other members of Aum Shinrikyo. Thanks to the takeover, they were able to smuggle in AK-74 rifles and bullets and started prototyping rifles based on AK-74 designs.
Well...
Makes you wonder what Elon's doing recently. The biological weapons... It sounds a lot like X. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
it just sounds like X.
Very different directions, but either way.
I'm just saying it sounds like X. I wasn't going anywhere else but there. The biological weapon, it's safer there, which is funny. That's the only time it's been said in the past 6 months. The biological weapons section also started back up. They not only pursued the creation of botulinum toxin, but also anthrax. They didn't attempt to purify the product again, and more failed attacks on individuals were attempted in 93 and 94, and the anthrax program was a failure as well. It just was not going well. Around November of 92, a small lab was started in order to conduct initial research on what the most cost-effective substance to cause harm would be. What a mission. And they determined that it would be sarin. This also was one of the chemical weapons that Aum was sure they would be attacked with, so they were going to create it too. They asked Tcwt, head of the lab, to produce a small amount of sarin. He did, and after that was produced and worked, he was ordered to produce 150,000 pounds of sarin. And Tcwt, to his... What?
Was this like against that guy's will?
No.
Like the lab guy? No, he was like a devout, like, I got this.
Yes.
Yikes.
However, to his credit, he said he couldn't do that as the lab could only scale up so much. So, of course, they bought land next to the lab,
Crazy, but
and they planned a
reasonable.
chemical plant. Right? They bought and planned a chemical plant build and labeled it Satyan 7, which is truth. They purchased all the necessary equipment and goods with shell companies that didn't fall under Aum, but rather under Hasegawa Chemical, which was owned by Asahara, because of course it was. I just want to let you know, these are a bunch of nerds that got popular because they were able to harness the early internet, etc.
Pretty much. That's what it sounds like.
In September of 93, Asahara and 24 cult members traveled to Perth, Australia. They brought generators, protective equipment, chemicals to make sarin, etc. Of course, those chemicals were confiscated by customs, but then they just repurchased them and chartered a flight to Banjarwan Station, which is where they had a spot where the cult was looking for uranium deposits to make nuclear weapons.
They didn't even manage the sarin gas.
Again with the feet. Find a nose to like. I'm sorry, you can't like the only thing that you stare down at. Broaden your horizons.
Yikes.
I mean, listen, I calls him like I sees him. And at this point, now you're just annoying. They stayed for 8 days, and they tried to return in October, but they were denied visas. They eventually decided to sell the station in October of 94, but they left behind multiple drums of hazardous and toxic chemicals and empty bottles of sake strewn about, because that's great, right? The new owners contacted the Australian Federal Police. Well done. The police inspected the property, and it was exposed as a former chemical weapons testing site for Aum Shinrikyo. But that didn't stop them. The facility they were building by the lab that I mentioned earlier was completed in September of 93, and it ended up being able to produce 11 to 13 gallons of sarin, which is a lot. The value, it doesn't take much. The value, so that building, the United Nations estimated the value of that building and its contents, and they estimated that building being worth $30 million. And that's how much they put into that facility, which is wild.
How do they make all this money? They got billions of
donations,
millions of dollars. That's wild.
Tax-free.
That's crazy.
But here's the thing. Despite all the money, despite the smarts, the operation's pretty unsafe. An analyst who looked at this said the cult had, quote, a high degree of book learning, but virtually nothing in the way of technical skill. The facility developed leaks. Buckets were used to contain spills. Technicians inhaled fumes on repeated occasions. They developed anything from nosebleeds to convulsions. Toxic chemicals leaked from the site and and there was an accident at the plant November 94 that actually forced the stoppage of the chemical agent production. So great. December of 93, Tcwt made a total of 6.6 pounds of sarin. They carried out 2 separate assassination attempts on Daisaku Ikeda, leader of the Soka Gakkai, which was a rival Japanese religious movement. That was in the middle of 94. They used a truck with a spraying system, which malfunctioned. This karma is a B. But on a separate occasion, they used a truck with a spraying system, which malfunctioned, and it ended up spraying sarin into the truck itself, mildly poisoning the people in the truck.
Mildly poisoning them.
Right? The second attack used a modified truck. This is ridiculous. The second attack used a modified truck that had an evaporation system, which basically was them in a truck heating sarin gas over a gas stove fire, or heating sarin over a gas stove fire. The truck caught on fire and poisoned the driver, Tomomitsu Nimi, causing the operators to run away. Now, he ended up being fine. He ended up being treated and fine, because he comes up later. It didn't matter, though. Failures be damned. Aum Shinrikyo knew Sarin was efficient, and it was effective, and Takezawa was put in charge of the operations of Satyan 7. Tsuchiya was assigned to other projects. So Tsuchiya was the original one who made all the Sarin. But he was assigned to other projects, which sound like total fun, including the development of psychoactives like LSD, PCP, methamphetamine, mescaline, and phenobarbital to be used in cult activities and brainwashing. Ta-da!
It's a party.
Party! I am watching that RuPaul's All Stars. He also made he also made small portions of phosgene, VX, Somon, cyclosarin, and gunpowder. So I am going to talk about the attacks, but I kind of want to talk just a little bit about Sarin. So Sarin's a human-made chemical nerve agent, which is one of the most toxic and rapidly acting of all known nerve agents. It interferes with the operation of an enzyme that stops muscles from contracting. And when that enzyme doesn't work, the muscles are constantly being stimulated in our bodies, which causes exposed people to become tired and literally no longer be able to continue breathing.
It's scary stuff.
Yeah, and even though it's a solid, it can readily evaporate into a vapor and spread. And you can be exposed to it through skin contact, eye contact, inhaling. If it's released into water, people can be exposed by touching the water or drinking the water. Eating, drinking, or touching food or drink contaminated with it can expose people as well. Exposure to a low or moderate dose can cause any or all of the following. And get ready for the end of the medicine ads that always have the side effects.
Yes. Will cause
abnormally low or high blood pressure. Right? Chest tightness, confusion, cough, diarrhea, drooling, difficulty breathing, drowsiness, eye pain, eye tearing, excessive sweating, headache, heart rate, slow or fast, increased urination, muscle cramps, nausea, vomiting, and or abdominal pain, rapid breathing, runny nose, shortness of breath, small pinpoint pupils, tremors, blurred vision, weakness, or wheezing. And even a small drop of sarin on skin can cause sweating and muscle twitching. Large doses can result in loss of consciousness, cardiac arrest, possibly leading to death, coma, convulsions, paralysis, respiratory failure, possibly leading to death, seizures, and twitching. It's not something to be fucked with. And I probably could have summed it up that way in a TLDR, but not as dramatic. And we all know me.
You are dramatic in the best way.
Yeah. Thanks.
In the best
So the idea was that the members who were going to carry out this attack carried small packets of sarin, and they carried umbrellas with sharpened tips onto the trains that they were told to board. They dropped the packets in the train cars, and they punctured them with the umbrella, and then they got off the train and left the station to meet a car waiting for them. And the packets would seep the sarin into the train car. Passengers, subway workers, and all those who came in contact with them would be impacted. So, on the Chiyoda line, Ikuo Hayashi and Tomomitsu Nimi, if you remember apparently not learning from their truck poisoning, they were assigned to this train line. Hayashi wore a surgical mask, which is commonplace in Japan, especially when one's sick and during cold flu season, in order to not make other people sick. Imagine that. And they left for Shin Ochanomizu. The train continued leaking sarin until 4 stops later at Kasumigaseki Station. The bags were removed. The bags of sarin were removed, eventually disposed of by attendants. And of course, those attendants died. The train kept on to the next station, where it was ultimately stopped, evacuated, and cleaned. But that wasn't the only line. They attacked multiple. There was the Marunuchi line. Yeah. Kenichi Hiroshi and Koichi Kitamura were assigned so many syllables. were assigned 2 packets on this train. Haros boarded the train and bought a sports tabloid to wrap the Sarin packets in. And then he got on the second car of the Marinucci line going the other way. He was about to release the Sarin, but he thought that the loud noises from like the paper and the Sarin packages and stuff, the packets, he thought that had caught the attention of a schoolgirl. Contrary to popular belief, those trains are really quiet. Really quiet. Silent. It's like the metro or a monorail late at night. Despite how many people are in there. Anyways, the sounds caught the attention of a schoolgirl, he thought. He got off the train at one of the 2 stops, moved to the third car instead of the second one. He dropped the newspapers to the floor, punctured the Sarin packets, bent the umbrella tip. He like punctured them so hard he bent the sharpened umbrella tip. And then and because of this, all 30 fluid ounces of Sarin were released onto the floor of the train. He then left, hopped into Kitamura's car. Yeah. And that release meant that he poisoned himself, but they had an antidote in the car. So he was fine.
Convenient.
Right. 19 stops later, 2 passengers who were severely hurt because of this were carried out of the train car. Another station attendant removed the Sarin packets. One of the 2 passengers carried out of the train were the only fatality from this attack. The train, though, kept going with Sarin still on the floor in the third car. 5 stops after the 19 stops, it reached the end of the line. Passengers continued to board the train, and it kept going until it was finally taken out of service 2 stops later. Whew. This attack resulted in 1 fatality and 358 being seriously injured on this line. Then you had the Ikebukuro bound line, and that was Masato Yokoyama and Kiyotaka Tonozaki. They were to release Sarin there. They got a newspaper. They wrapped the Sarin packets in it. Yokoyama was, I think he was the prankster because he ended up getting a wig and fake glasses, and he boarded the 5th car to do this. He poked at the Sarin packets. When the train reached the next station, he fled, left the Sarin packets on the train car. Luckily, they weren't punctured completely. In fact, one was fully intact, and the other one was punctured just once. The Sarin was released slowly. The train reached the end of the line, but then was stopped and searched. They couldn't find any Sarin packets, so the train departed again. Passengers soon got ill and let attendants know of the Sarin-soaked newspapers. Staff removed the packets and mopped the floor, but then the train still kept going. The train arrived at its final destination of Shinjuku and was only put out of service an hour later, and there were over 200 people left seriously injured. I promise we're almost done. It's a marathon.
It's been so many events so far. Like they just kept going. Like so far they have not been intervened with. Like that is for years.
Well, for years, absolutely. And then this attack was so, I hate to say it, but it was well planned. This was all happening at the same time. So they couldn't talk to each other. They didn't know what the hell was going on because they couldn't learn from one to, influence the other's decisions. But the Habaya line, Toru Toyota, that's right, Toyota, and Katsuya Takahashi planned to release Sarin on this line. Again, newspaper wrapped it up. They arrived at Nakamaguro station. They boarded the first car, set the Sarin packets on the floor. On the way out at his next stop, Toyota put holes in both packets and left the train. This took literally a total of 2 minutes. 2 stops later at Roppongi station, passengers started feeling the effects already and opened the windows. By the next stop, passengers were panicking. The first car was evacuated. Passengers were taken to the hospital, but the train continued down the line for one more stop. On this line, 1 person died and 532 were seriously injured.
Wow.
Nakamagura bound line. This was the responsibility of Yasuo Hayashi and Shigeo Sugimoto. Hayashi brought so Hayashi brought 3 packets onto the train. He carried a messed up leftover packet because he wanted to keep them from being suspicious of his loyalty. I guess he thought something was wrong there. 1 more bag, and I guess they would be satisfied. But he boarded the 3rd car of that line. He dropped the sarin packets to the floor. 2 stops later, he poked holes in 2 of the 3 and left the train. He had made the most punctures of the whole group. 4 people died as a result. Of course, a puddle of sarin was on the floor of the passenger car as the train continued to the next station. Man, you need a life. They only kicked the package they found out of the car, and they only kicked 2 out of 3 of the packages. Passengers ended up stumbling out and collapsing. Between the 5 stations, 8 people died, and 275 ultimately were seriously injured. And I'll give you the stats in total in a second here. So the Tokyo subway attack shocked Japan and the world, leading to a massive investigation by Japanese authorities. Within days, on May 16th, 1995, police raided Aum Shinrikyo's compounds across the country, uncovering a stockpile of chemical weapons, explosives, and other illegal materials. They thought the cult members might resist, and so they stationed the 1st Airborne Brigade of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force nearby, just in case. We don't want to have a Waco. Maybe they did. I don't know. On the day of the attack, so here are your stats. On the day of the attack, ambulances transported 688 patients, and nearly 5,000 people reached hospitals by other means. 278 hospitals saw over 5,500 patients. 17 were deemed critical, 37 severe, 984 moderately ill with vision problems. By mid-afternoon, 500 of those had recovered from their vision problems and were released. Most others were okay to go home the following day. Within a week, only a few were left in the hospital. 8 died that day, and 4 more died after as a result. So, wow. I mean, also, like, the population of Japan and how busy those central areas are, trains and such.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky it wasn't double, to be honest.
That's what I was I was thinking, like, wow, those numbers are huge. Those numbers are ridiculously huge. But I've seen photos of how packed the subway trains are, and like that's a blessing, because I think they were intending it to be way more catastrophic than it was. And
for sure. I mean, and like, to give, and we don't want to compare tragedies because those folks they all experience terrible things. Sure. But to give you an idea, right? The 9/11 attacks, the death toll of that was just for under 3,000. And although this ended up only being, I'm just trying to give you an idea of how many people were invading the hospitals, right? Which was over 5,500, which is insane. I can't imagine. So Shoko Asahara was arrested May of 95 after being found hiding in a wall with within one of the cult's buildings. I don't know how he fit in it. If you look him up, you'll know what I mean. But he fit there. He was charged with numerous crimes: murder, attempted murder, production and use of chemical weapons. And the trial, which began in 96, was one of the longest and most complex in Japanese history. He was finally found guilty and sentenced to death in 2004.
Wow.
Yeah. Following his arrest, Aum Shinrikyo was rebranded as Aleph in 2000. So it was going through rebranding. Yep. So it was rebranded as Aleph in 2000. Despite the cult's name change and efforts to distance itself from its violent past, it remains under constant surveillance by Japanese authorities. The group still exists, much smaller following, but that other half is still promoting Asahara's teachings. Asahara was sentenced to death by hanging. The lawyers appealed the ruling. The court delayed its decision until results were garnered from a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. February of 2006, they deemed him fit for trial, or at least the sentence. And on March 27th, 2006, they rejected an appeal against the death sentence, and the Supreme Court upheld that September 15th, 06. 2 other retrials were indeed declined. His death sentence was carried out on July 6, 2018. It was announced that Asahara and 6 other senior Aum Shinrikyo members were executed at the same time. Now, the Japanese don't actually give the real dates of execution. That's just when it was reported on. His execution brought a sense of closure, to many of the victims and their families. But that legacy is a dark chapter in Japan's history. A total of 189 members were indicted. 13 were sentenced to death. 5 were sentenced to life in prison. 80 were given prison sentences of various lengths. 87 received suspended sentences. 2 were fined, and 1 was found not guilty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
2000. Why? Thank you, Dual Wielding, for gifting membership. Appreciate that a whole ton and a lot. And I'll have to look up who received it. A 2008 law enacted by the Japanese government authorized payments of damages to victims of the gas attack because the attack was directed at the government of Japan. As of December 2009, 5,259 people have applied for benefits under the law. Of those, 47 out of 70 have been certified as disabled, and 1,077 of the over 1,100 applications for serious injuries or illnesses have been certified, which is wild. Melissa, welcome to the crew. Welcome to the vineyard. I think I just made that up. Welcome to the vineyard. So, until 2008, ultimately 12 fatalities resulting from the attack have been officially acknowledged. However, in 2008, a survey of victims was conducted by the prefectural police department for the purpose of allocating compensation. The survey determined that a man who had died the day after the attack had also been killed by sarin inhalation, thereby increasing the officially recognized death toll to 13. Another victim, who was bedridden for 25 years since the attack, died. And 56-year-old Shoko Asahara's death was determined to be hypoxic encephalopathy. That sounds fake, but it's true. Encephalopathy.
Good job.
Caused by sarin poisoning. So she's considered the attack's 14th fatality. So Shoko Asahara's rise from a visually impaired child in rural Japan to the leader of a deadly doomsday cult is a chilling example of how charisma, manipulation, and extreme ideology can lead to tragedy. Aum Shinrikyo's actions shocked the world and served as a stark reminder of the dangers posed by extremist groups. While Asahara is no longer alive, the impact of his actions continues to be felt, and this story serves as a cautionary tale about the destructive potential of apocalyptic cults. Aum lost its status as a religious organization. I would hope so. And many of its assets were seized. The National Public Safety Commission received more funding to actually monitor the group. So by 2012, the last 2 folks wanted for the attack were arrested in Tokyo and Kanagawa. The group apparently still has around 2,100 members, keeps recruiting new members. The group still keeps to Asahara's spiritual teachings despite renouncing the violent crimes. And so it goes on. Yep, Lady in Grey's right. He may be gone, but his group lives on. And that's a rhyme because I'm a poet and didn't know it. That is indeed my case. I know that was a lot. Thanks for slogging through me, but slogging through me. Thanks for slogging through with me. It's a fascinating cult.
That's incredibly wild. Like, for it to span that many years of that was amazing. I don't know why I haven't heard. I've heard of the guy that was in charge. I'm not even going to try to say his name. I'm not going to remember.
Shoko Asahara.
Yes, I've heard of him, but I did not know the details really of the extent of his cult and their crimes. And that's just wild for the people of Japan during that time.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
I thought mine was crazy. And
I mean, they're crazy in different ways, you know.
They're very crazy in different ways. But religion, when taken to extremism, extremism can really be quite wild.
Oh, harmful.
Harmful.
Super harmful. Have I practiced? Sam asked if I practiced saying that. All of those names, no, not out loud. But just having lived there helped. Having lived in Japan for a little while did help a little bit.
Mhm.
Yes. Both stories
whack.
are indeed whack.
Whack. I haven't
Straight
said
up
that forever, but let's bring it back. Let's bring it back.
Bring whack back. Bring whack back.
Like the
Thanks
chant.
everybody for tuning in. Just to give you a preview, we got Women on Death Row tomorrow releasing. From here on out, Women on Death Row is going to be releasing on Tuesdays at 9 and Friday. No, yes, and Friday. No, I think they're both going to be releasing at 7.
Fridays at 7.
Tuesdays-
They'll be released Tuesdays and Fridays
Thank
at 7.
When you see the credits and it says Producer Llama, look, it's Producer Llama right here. So yes, Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 from here on out, just to make it easier on the schedule and for everybody to remember. Night Court will be coming back October 6th. Yay! And I'm very excited. Our assistant producer, Annie, is doing a wonderful job putting ideas together. It is going to be, to give you a brief, it is going to be a review of the past week of crime and trials and a preview of the upcoming week with case reports and things like that in the middle. And we're going to have fun while we do it. So we'll leave it at that. So it's going to be a brand new format, a brand new style of Night Court, but I think you'll like it. And the crew that is working on it is wonderful. So yay for that. And then we got Midday Missing on Monday.
Monday and Wednesday.
Monday and Wednesday. And
On
then
Wednesdays, we have the transcript.
Correct.
Sarah Boone
Which
letters.
we will continue. Yeah, we'll continue with Sarah Boone letters. And then I think another preview. I think we're going to move into the Delphi documents, right? I think that's what we're doing next after Sarah Boone. Maybe. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see. And then Hey Ho shows on Friday. So
we're gonna have all the fun.
Yeah, the goal is to release Women on Death Row Friday at 7, and then have that direct you to the live chat for Hey Ho Show. So you don't even have to change. You don't have to, change the channel. It'll just send you there when you're done. So, I think it's a good time to sign off. It's been a while. It's one of the longer ones we've had in a while. But right before we play the outro video, I will play 2 trailers, one for Dearest Mother, Darkest Secret, and Women on Death Row, and then we'll go straight into the outro. So we will say toodles at this point. Llama, you've got your amazing sign off. We'll let you go first.
I do. Well, first, I want to just thank our amazing mods tonight, the best team in all the land, for sure. But I'm Llama here with you tonight for True Crime and Wine Time. And until next time, go forth and be amazing. So that's that. Hearts.
I love
finger hearts.
Yay. Take care of yourself, everybody. Take care of your friends, family, and community. Try not to troll. Actually, I just threw myself off by adding that in there. Don't let anybody dull your sparkle. Damn it. And shine on. Shine on, you crazy diamonds. Llama, thank you for joining tonight and filling in and being the hero that we need, but that we don't deserve.
I am no Terry True Crime, but it was my pleasure.
Just flip and say you're welcome.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Bye, everybody. Good night. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.